Imagine this, a roaring crowd, cameras flashing, a stage set for what was supposed to be a peaceful gathering. But suddenly chaos erupts. Out of nowhere, a black belt fighter storms forward, his eyes filled with arrogance, his body brimming with violence. His target? Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a man known not for flashy moves or public stunts, but for his discipline, composure, and unshakable strength. Nobody in that audience could have predicted what was about to happen. Nobody imagined that a single kick, thrown in arrogance, would turn into one of the most unforgettable lessons of respect the world had ever witnessed. Tonight you will hear that story. A story of arrogance versus discipline. A story of violence versus calmness. A story of brute force against unbreakable will. And above all, a story that will leave you questioning what true strength really means. The event was buzzing with energy. People had gathered to see Captain Ibrahim Traoré speak about leadership, unity, and resilience. But not everyone in the crowd came with respect. Among them was a black belt fighter, infamous in the local community. He was known for his flashy skills, his violent temper, and his thirst for dominance. He wasn't there to listen. He was there to prove something, to humiliate a man who had never claimed to be a martial artist, but who had gained the respect of millions. The fighter pushed through the crowd, ignoring the murmurs and shouts around him. He shouted loudly, his voice echoing across the venue. "Traoré, you call yourself a leader? You call yourself strong? Face me like a man. Let's see if you can survive against a real fighter." The crowd fell silent. Gasps filled the air. All eyes turned to Traoré. Instead of reacting with anger, Traoré simply stood tall. His calmness was unnerving. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He looked at the fighter, his face expressionless, and said softly, "Strength is not measured by how loudly you scream. It is shown by how firmly you stand when challenged." But the fighter wasn't listening. He wanted blood. Before anyone could intervene, the black belt fighter charged forward. His movements were sharp, trained, precise. With a sudden leap, he threw a spinning kick, his heel crashing straight into Traoré's face. The audience gasped. People screamed. Cameras shook. For a split second, everyone thought it was over, that the captain would collapse to the ground, defeated in front of thousands. But then, something extraordinary happened. Traoré didn't fall. He didn't stumble. He didn't even raise his fists. He simply stood there. The kick had landed, but his presence, his aura was unshaken. Slowly, calmly, he lifted his hand and wiped the dust from his cheek. Then he looked directly into the fighter's eyes. That look, it wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was something far more powerful. A look that said, "You cannot break me." The fighter's confidence wavered. His arrogance cracked. For the first time, he realized this was not going to be an easy victory. The black belt fighter, embarrassed in front of the crowd, launched a second attack. Punches, kicks, rapid strikes, his body moved like lightning. But Traoré didn't retaliate. He didn't swing back. He simply stepped aside, dodging with minimal movement, letting the fighter exhaust himself. With every missed strike, the fighter grew angrier. Sweat dripped down his forehead. His breathing became heavier. The crowd began to shift. First, they were shocked. Now, they were beginning to see the truth. Traoré wasn't fighting back because he didn't need to. His strength was not in violence. His power was in control. At one point, Traoré raised his voice. Not in rage, but in command. Discipline defeats chaos. A leader doesn't need fists to win respect. He needs patience. The crowd erupted in cheers. The fighter grew desperate. He lunged forward one last time. But this time, he tripped over his own footing and crashed to the ground. There he was, the black belt fighter, on his knees, humiliated, breathing heavily, broken not by punches, but by the weight of his own arrogance. Traoré walked toward him slowly. The entire venue went silent. People expected retaliation, revenge, maybe even violence. But what came next shocked everyone. Traoré extended his hand, not to strike, but to help the fighter back to his feet. The fighter, drenched in sweat, trembling, looked up with disbelief. For the first time in his life, he felt small. Not because of the crowd, not because of failure, but because he stood before a man whose strength was beyond physical. Traoré pulled him up and spoke words that echoed through the venue, words that would be remembered for years. Respect is not earned through fear. It is earned through honor. Remember this, true warriors protect. They do not humiliate. The fighter broke down. Tears filled his eyes. The same man who had entered with arrogance was now humbled, transformed by the dignity of the man he tried to destroy. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. People chanted Traoré's name. The world had witnessed not just a fight, but a lesson. That night became a story told across nations, shared in whispers and headlines. The black belt fighter never forgot it. Neither did the crowd. Neither did anyone who heard it. Because what Ibrahim Traoré showed was more than strength. He showed that true power is not about how hard you can hit, but about how much you can endure without losing control. He proved that calmness can defeat chaos, that patience can overpower violence, that leadership is not about forcing people to bow, it is about inspiring them to rise. And perhaps most importantly, he showed that even in the face of humiliation, kindness can be the greatest weapon of all. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, the next time life throws its hardest kick at your face, remember the lesson of Ibrahim Traoré. Do not be shaken. Do not be broken. Stand tall. Stand calm. And let your character speak louder than any punch ever could. Because in the end, the world does not remember those who shouted the loudest. It remembers those who stood the firmest.